Hey everyone, what's going on? Thanks for tuning in to Relevant Jukebox, and today we're going to talk about the latest album from Brockhampton, Roadrunner, New Light, New Machine. So this is the sixth full-length album from the boy band, who are still really early on in their careers, but somehow doesn't really feel like it. It's almost impossible to forget the run that they had in 2017 with their Saturation series. 3 album drops that were extremely fun and refreshing and showed a lot of promise for the future. And then came all of the controversy, especially with Amir, who got later removed, and the next 2 albums that followed were just not as magical, in my opinion. So Roadrunner marks a new starting point for the band, and feels like they're starting over, but also feels like they're playing it safe. The album kicks off with a bang, with the single Buzz Cut, which is probably one of the best Brockhampton tracks to drop to date. There's a ton of wild energy, a lot of colorful production quirks, and even a Danny Brown feature. I mean, honestly, what's not to love about this track? I mean, it has a really huge bass that's groovy, and structurally the track is interesting too with its like R&B outro. If I'm being honest though, nothing on the rest of this album reaches the heights of Buzz Cut. The production on here takes a much more traditional hip-hop approach, and it sort of feels like they're throwing it back a bit to the golden days of hip-hop. It also feels a lot more reeled in compared to their past work, with not many beat switch-ups or just wild layers of melodies. And that formula at times does work on here, but other times leaves a bit to be desired, in my opinion. The track Chain On that features JPEG Mafia has a really great feeling. There's a really catchy bass line with these bubbling synthesizers that create a nice looped earworm. It's certainly a vibe that I find extremely enjoyable. Both of the performances from Dom and JPEG Mafia are great as well, but repeating this track, it just kind of gets stale because there's a severe lack of progression to it. Windows was another track on here that I thought stood out amongst the bunch. The beat is sort of low-key, but it slaps at the same time, and Merlin just absolutely destroys his verses when he comes in. I mean, he flows so well over the beat, and it is the longest cut on the album, reaching over 6 minutes, but it doesn't really get stale for the whole track. When I Ball is a almost college dropout-esque oasis towards the end. Probably my favorite track on the album outside of Buzz Cut. The bass line just has this extremely warm feeling to it, and honestly feels like it's lifted directly out of like an Elvis Depressedly song. Also, all the string arrangements and the guitars that are layered in are just sublime. Don't Shoot Up the Party is the last explosive moment on the record. I wouldn't necessarily call it a banger, but the really bright, radiating guitars that layer over this cut are extremely anxiety-inducing, especially when the track just sort of melts away into static to close out. The rest of the album, in contrast though, does explore more tendencies in pop music and shows a more vulnerable side of the group. Tracks like Count on Me, I'll Take You On, and Old News all feature choruses that have a pretty prominent hook to them, but if I'm being honest, none of these tracks really have anything else to stand on outside of their choruses and a pretty cringy feeling that comes along with them. And there are also some like instant skips on this project. I mean, take the track Dear Lord, for example. Yeah, I'm just really not interested at all in hearing a minute and a half of Bareface whining. Also, the tracks What's the Occasion and Bankroll just didn't really leave an impression on me, honestly. So I mean, overall, I definitely think this album is more enjoyable than the last 2. It's really great to hear the group put out tracks that are like fun to listen to again. Also, the features on this project were really great. I will say though, some of the lyricism comes off a little too vulnerable and gets in my way of enjoying some of these tracks. But still, I do think this is a nice bounce back for Brockhampton, and I hope that this will continue a nice forward momentum onto another album. And with that being said, I'm feeling a 7 over here on Roadrunner. So I headed over to Brockhampton's website. There's no vinyl releases just yet. There were a bunch of different CDs that got released with all different covers for each group member, but those have all sold out by now. But Brockhampton does sort of periodically drop their merch, so I would keep an eye on their website in the next couple weeks to see if a vinyl pops up. I'm sure it will. And if you have listened to Roadrunner already, what did you think about it? Let me know in the comments section down below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and share, and if you want more content from me, hit that subscribe button. Peace.